All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports Podcast. We are in week 2 of our NFL divisional previews. This week, we're talking NFC and AFC East. Lots of drama and lots of new things going on in both of those divisions, and no better person to talk to about the East Coast of the NFC and NFC East divisions than Zach Gelb, host of the CBS Sports Radio national radio show aforementioned, the Zach Gelb Show, on all your favorite CBS Sports affiliates, as well as SiriusXM. Welcome back, Mr. Gelb.
Jason, how you doing? It's been a while since we were eating key lime pie together in beautiful Tampa.
Yes, it was. Another losing year for your Rangers.
Yes, they went all in and they got embarrassed in the first round. So what can you do? Nothing like taking the first 2 games of a series, especially on the other team's ice, thinking that you're going to win that series rather quickly and then getting your heart broken in Game 7. So another lovely year. Death taxes and the Rangers disappointing me.
Even more so, you lose to your little stepbrother, the Devils.
Yeah, enough with the Devil fan. I can't stand the Devil fan. I wish him nothing but the best, of course, though, moving forward.
I got you. All right, before we get to the football, I want to get your thoughts on the Yankees and the Mets, kind of adjunct failures to this point. Obviously, we know the Mets have cleaned house with all their free agency trades of Verlander and Scherzer, and buying the prospects that they bought for Mr. Cohen's $80 million, whatever it cost him. Just give me your quick thought on the Yankees and the Mets, as we got about 50 games left and the Yankees are in big trouble.
Yeah, the Mets have been a big disappointment. Once the Correa deal went south before the start of the season, then you had the Diaz injury. It kind of gave me an ominous feeling that this team wasn't going to be as good as advertised, but I didn't think it would get to this level where they would be non-competitive really for the last month and a half, 2 months. I know that they officially waved the white flag right at the trade deadline, first getting rid of Scherzer and then surprisingly getting rid of Verlander. But I still have confidence that they'll be able to turn it around in the next year or two because I still believe in the owner, in Steve Cohen. Now, the honeymoon is over. You got to go find a way to win, especially when you say you're going to win a World Series in the first 5 or 6 years. But I know he'll do everything in his power to keep on spending, and money will not get in the way. As for the Yankees, how many times are you going to keep on running it back with the same regime? And there's, one thing to come up short in an ALCS, and you continue to get spanked around by the Astros. But this team this year is lethargic. I know Judge got hurt, and that was just a gut punch, but then he eventually does come back. But you look at that lineup. I went to a Yankee game this year, and Garrett Cole was pitching, and he was phenomenal in the game. They ended up winning. But I said to myself, with Judge out of the lineup when he was, and I know Cole is one of the better pitchers in baseball, there's no bat in that lineup that really makes you say ooh and ah when you go to Yankee Stadium, which you usually think you're going to see a bunch of legendary players. So I don't think Cashman nor Boone will be let go. I don't really think it's Boone's fault because he's just basically listening to whatever Cashman says. But the Yankees continue to be way too loyal to Brian Cashman, who is a really good executive, but I think it's time for something new. But I don't expect major changes with the Yankees because they keep on doing the same thing year in and year out. So New York baseball, an absolute failure. And for the first time in a long time, New York fans are saying, get me to football season, which is not usually the case.
One more question on the baseball. It's amazing how the ownership perception has changed dramatically. You got the Mets with Cohen spending gazillions of dollars. Now Brenner is more of a little more conservative, not spending not going crazy with the dollars like his dad did. How's that dynamic fitting in with the New York sports fan?
Yeah, I think Hal kind of gets a pass because everyone just talks about Cashman and Boone, but you're not wrong. And the Yankees still spend money, but it's not the way that they spent like drunken sailors when George Steinbrenner was the owner, or what Steve Cohen is doing right now. And if George was still around, I'll tell you this, this would not be going for as long as it's been with coming up short. And eventually they would have seen Cashman and Boone out. But Hal is going to continue to be loyal to his guys, and that's what we've seen.
Yeah, it's funny. I live about 10 minutes down the street from the headquarters of the Yankees down here, and it's this time of year next. Come the October, November, December, be interesting to see what the meetings that happen in the off season down here, because those usually do happen down here. So, all right, let's get to the football field. You are in the mecca now of Aaron Rodgers mania, the huge move the Jets made in the offseason, bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Just talk about how you think he's handled all the New York. Obviously, we've seen him at all the games and all that stuff, but just the logistics of the football side of things. How do you think the Jets have handled it, and how do you think Rodgers has handled the new scenery?
So I'm really close with a bunch of our affiliates in the state of Wisconsin. So I've talked more Packers than anybody the last 3 years. And what you heard about Aaron Rodgers, and I'm talking about from reliable sources, where at times it got amicable between him and Gutekunst, but towards the end, he was, and I've said this on the air, he was blowing off LaFleur, keeping him guessing when LaFleur was trying to say, okay, let's get together and give you more input on the offense. So it got really ugly. And I was wondering, clearly it was coming to an end this offseason. I didn't think that was going to be the case the last few years, but going into this offseason, I said, Rodgers going to get traded. And you see the Rodgers that the Jets got, it's a totally different Aaron Rodgers, where he is bought in. He is appreciative that the organization actually wants him. And the organization, for the most part, they rolled out the red carpet and they said, hey, come take the best office in the building. We'll give you the keys and you'll get to run the entire show. So the way that Rodgers is connected with his new teammates, and not only that, the way that everything he's saying is just wonderful. If you are a Jets fan, to just be hearing, he has really impressed me so far. I don't usually buy into offseason hype, to a point where if they don't find a way to get it done, it's not going to be because of a lack of trying. It's just going to be that, hey, they aren't good enough. And you've seen some of the shortcomings the last few years in Green Bay, an easier conference when they've had the number 1 seed, when they've had home field advantage, and they've come up short up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then also the the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the expectations now, you got the Jets coming in 7-10 from last year. Obviously, we knew the defense is really, really good. Can the offense do enough to score enough? Obviously, we know Rodgers is good enough, but do they have enough help around him? We know Garrett Wilson's a really good player, but the offensive line, is that the
biggest key
part of this team success?
Biggest key. I was talking with Lige Duzabal, former Jets defensive lineman, the other day, and does a great job on CBS Sports HQ and Sirius XM. And I go, defense, you got to love it up front. You got to love it with the cornerbacks and the defensive backs. Quarterback, massive improvement from the dreadful Zach Wilson of a year ago. Garrett Wilson put up 1,100 yards last year with no quarterback whatsoever. Run game, assuming Breece Hall's able to come back from the ACL, and maybe they add Dalvin Cook, it's in a good spot. They have enough, but that offensive line is the biggest question mark to me. And even though you bring in Aaron Rodgers, it's great. We all know the great quarterbacks, they don't like getting hit. You don't need a PhD in football to figure that one out. And the way you beat Aaron Rodgers is to hit him. So that offensive line, if they could be above average, the Jets have a shot to be playing in the AFC title game. And I know people will say Super Bowl or bust, and I understand why the Jet fan says Super Bowl or bust. But for this season to be a success, I think they have to be in the AFC title game. Right now, I have them as a wild card team. If you tell me they win the division, I would not be shocked. But I go back to what I just said in the last answer, in that Aaron Rodgers in the postseason, some years you could blame defense in Green Bay. You could blame the special teams in Green Bay. But as of late, Tom Brady tried to give him that NFC title game. 3 and out, down 5. I know everyone crushes LaFleur for that stupid field goal down 8, but he stalled in the red zone. I think it was on 3rd and goal. He could have ran it in the end zone, right. and he did not do that. And up against the 49ers, he got too locked in on Devontae Adams down that left sideline. He had Allen Lazard wide open.
He's still running.
Yeah.
Still running.
They scored a touchdown right out of the gate, and they did nothing else after that. So Rodgers, he's saying all the right things. He's taking less money. He's putting them in the best position. He's got to get the job done come postseason.
Let's go to Miami. 9-8 last year. They're losing the wild card to Buffalo. To me, they're the two keys. Can they keep Tua upright? To me, the health of Tua is utmost importance. What do you see in Miami?
So I think Miami right now is my pick to win the AFC East as we sit here on August 8th. If you tell me Buffalo, I'm not going to argue it. If you tell me the Jets, I'm not going to argue it. I was just having this conversation in our newsroom. We're all splitting hairs there. But the thing I like about the Dolphins, obviously Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. McDaniel creeps me out, but the guy's a heck of a coach. He almost beat Buffalo last year with Skylar Thompson. Yeah. The defense, you would think, would be more consistent, would be improved this year. And you bring in a better defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. But I usually like the team that everyone's telling me before the season starts, Tua can't stay healthy. And I understand why, because of the frightening stuff we saw last year. So I'm going to bank that everyone's going to be wrong. Tua's going to stay healthy, and the Dolphins, in maybe a tiebreaker, they find a way to win the AFC East.
I'm with you. I think he is a if he stays healthy, he's such a good distributor of the ball. They have so much speed. It's just even great defenses. It's almost impossible to cover those guys. All right, let's go to Buffalo, upstate New York, 13-3 last year. They win the wild card game, lose in the divisional round. The question starting to become, can they get over the hump? We know they're good. They got great players. Can they finally get over the hump, whether it's Cincinnati or Kansas City?
So here's the biggest key for Buffalo, the health of Von Miller. It's that simple. You saw Buffalo go into Kansas City last year. Von Miller comes off the edge, gets in Mahomes' face. Mahomes throws the ball early, makes a mistake, and Teron Johnson, I believe it was, had the interception. Now, I just picked the Dolphins to win the division. It does not mean that I'll pick the Dolphins to go the furthest out of the AFC East teams in the playoffs. It would still be Buffalo, but this is an enormous year for Buffalo because you had the whole 13-second disaster 2 years ago, and then you come back after really Josh Allen played the two best games you could see maybe that did not result in a championship.
Right.
And then last year, it unraveled for them. Now, I know a lot happened in the community. A lot happened with DeMar Hamlin, clearly, which it's amazing how he's back on a football field. I would have never thought that would have been the outcome when I was on the air that night. But for Buffalo, they have to get it done this year. Now, we talk about Super Bowl or bust. Buffalo's one of those handful of teams that actually have legitimate Super Bowl or bust expectations heading into this year. Because you know it, Jason, you keep on getting close. Eventually, your window closes. And Buffalo has been that team. Close. Now people are jumping off the bandwagon. I'm vacillating on my Super Bowl prediction this year. You know, you tell me Kansas City's going to win it. Everyone could do that.
Sure.
And I would not fault you if you take Kansas City. Right now in the AFC, I'm between Cincinnati and I'm between Buffalo. But Buffalo got embarrassed by the Bengals last year in that playoff game. And I'm just curious how they're going to respond. And you have to take some of the burden off of the shoulders and legs of Josh Allen. They got to run the football a little bit more.
I'm with you. Now, to me, an odd move they made this offseason was the whole Leslie Frazier leaving and now McDermott's taking over.
Yeah.
The defense. You'll wonder if McDermott's really
what's the truth
the pressure.
There?
Yeah. What's the truth and what's not? And McDermott taking over the defense. I don't love that, and that defense is getting old too.
It is. I love Sean McDermott. When the Eagles hired Doug Peterson, which was not a popular hire, I said they should have hired Sean McDermott. So I've been a big fan of Sean McDermott. Yep. And the Bills didn't make the playoffs in forever, and all they do now is make the playoffs and have high expectations with Sean McDermott. But sometimes a coach can only take you so far. And if they don't get the job done this year or make you believe that they can get the job done, you wonder, Sean, you've done a great job with this team, but do you need a new voice in there?
Kind of reminds me of Tony Dungy and John Gruden if they don't get it done this year here in Tampa. So, all right, let's go to New England. 8-9 last year. You know, they finally have made some coaching changes. You got a legitimate offensive coordinator and then Bill O'Brien, who knows Belichick well. We got out of the whole Matt Patricia circus. Future of Mac Jones, to me, is you've not heard of any kind of Belichick decree that he's our guy. So is this a big year for Mac Jones?
Well, breaking news, because I interpret Bill Belichick pretty well. He says this about every position. You know, we sit here, we have competition, and no one's job is ever won. He's never given. You have to go out there and you have to earn it. So Mac Jones is going to be a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I had two things that I wanted to see New England do this offseason, and they weren't big things. Get a legit offensive coordinator because it was a clown show last year with Judge and Patricia. They did that with Bill O'Brien. The other thing was go get DeAndre Hopkins or a Jackson Smith-Njigba or a Quentin Johnston in the draft. They did not do that.
Right.
So you bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not a number one wide receiver. They did a half-fixed job where you, get better coaching around Mac, which was big, but he still doesn't have a number one wide receiver. And ultimately, New England is on the same category as Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets. Because you look at a team like Philadelphia. How did they take off? They got Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. Buffalo, when did they take off? When they got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. The Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. And as a Patriot fan, I got a deal who I like, Kendrick Bourne, but he's not a number one. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not a number one. Devontae Parker, who's not a number one. There's no reason why DeAndre Hopkins shouldn't be on this team.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm with you. To me, they refuse to go get an elite skill player for whatever reason.
And that's the adjustment Belichick has failed to make. You lose Brady for years when Brady was there. you could afford not to get the great wide receivers. I know that 1 year they get Randy Moss. Sure, they draft, Rob Gronkowski, but you didn't need the great wide receiver. They traded for Julian, for Wes Welker. It turned out to be great. Right. They drafted, Julian Edelman, I think was in the seventh round out of Kent State.
7th rounder, yep.
And look what he turned out to be. You don't have Brady anymore. So you got to go get your young quarterback some help. I'm not telling you Mac Jones is great, but I don't know what Mac Jones can be because they haven't put him in a position to succeed. New England will still win 8 games, 9 games because of Belichick. It's weird. Belichick is general manager, and I usually never said this. He could drive you crazy nowadays, but as a coach, you look at that roster, the last 2 years, he got them to the playoffs, and then they still went 8-9 with the chance to get in the postseason the final week of the season if they would have beat Buffalo. So he's still coaching above what the talent is, but he's in charge of getting the talent in there.
Is he in any kind of trouble if they don't make the playoffs this year with Kraft?
So a month ago, I would say you're crazy. There's been more conversation about it. I will still stand by the whole Shula record and how important I think that is to Kraft for that to be done with Belichick, with the Patriot visor, if you want to say, or a Patriot collared shirt. I would say with what Belichick has done, which is 6 Super Bowl championships, and it wasn't all Tom Brady, even though people will tell you that now. And I always said Brady was more important than Belichick, but let's not look at Belichick like he's some bum because he's still one of, if not the greatest coach of all time. And he made the playoffs that 1 year with the Browns and beat the Patriots too with Bill Parcells. But I think that if he misses the playoffs 3 straight years in a row, then he'll get fired or they'll move him upstairs. They'll do something with him. But if it's just back-to-back, which could be the case after this year, I think he'll get another year with what he's built in New England.
All right, listen to Zach Gelb, host of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, national radio show, Sirius XM, CBS Sports affiliates, 7 to 10 or 6 to 10 for the show?
6 to 10.
6 to 10 on your Eastern time, all over the country, and doing a great job previewing NFC and NFC and AFC East division. Let's go to the NFC. Mm-hmm. Let's start in Dallas. 12-5. Again, another good year. Big change. Kellen Moore out, Mike McCarthy in, calling plays. What are your thoughts on that?
I've always thought Kellen Moore is a tad overrated. Good offensive mind. But remember, this guy was supposed to be a head coach. And now his new job is the offensive coordinator of the Chargers. So I think that means something. McCarthy has done a better job than what anyone could have imagined in Dallas. People that thought he would have been fired by now. He's had back-to-back 12-win seasons. Right. The defense the last 2 years against the Niners gave you championship performances. They've done their job. This comes down to, I know their offensive line's taking a step back. We'll see what Pollard looks like coming off the injury. You have enough there at wide receivers. It's all about the quarterback and Dak Prescott. Yep. Dak is getting paid $40-something million a year. Dak is a really good quarterback. I think he is right on that line of a top 10 quarterback. Yep. I have 10 quarterbacks that I'd take over Dak Prescott right now, but he's in that conversation for at times 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Dak has to play better in the big game. And until I see it, I will say the drama Dallas choking Cowboys will be the drama Dallas choking Cowboys when the game gets big and you start to believe in them. Like I thought they were going to go into San Francisco and win the game last year after beating Tampa Bay, even though Tampa Bay was an anemic 8-9. Yep. But until Dak gets the job done for an organization that has not been to an NFC title game or a Super Bowl since they last were there in 1995, I expect them to be a team in the regular season that looks really good, but then playoff time, there will be teams that are better.
All right, let's go to your neck of the woods, New York Giants, 9-7-1, had a great overachieving year last year. Brian Daboll, Jones played okay. You got Jones signed, but you don't sign Barkley long-term. Your thoughts on the way they did that, how the Giants handled that internally?
Yeah, I have big-time respect for Joe Shane, the general manager, and Brian Daboll as well. The Giants have the right people, and they quickly changed the culture, which the Giants used to be one of the proudest organizations in the NFL. And the last 5 to 7 years, they were a complete dumpster fire. After not that long ago, winning 2 Super Bowls with Tom Coughlin and beating the greatest NFL dynasty that we've ever seen in the Patriots twice, with Super Bowl 42 and then Super Bowl 46. Yeah. With that being said, I do think there will be some regression this year with the Giants. But I think that's because they overachieved last year. I like the moves that they made this offseason. You have some foundational pieces, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Jones. They structured the contract the right way where it's basically a 2-year deal. If it doesn't work, they could get out of it.
Yep.
I like the move of Darren Waller. The wide receivers may define the Giants season. The health of Saquon is always big. It's just not the way the league works right now. You give out these long-term deals. We've seen Nick Chubb, the last running back to get paid in 2021. But I want to see if the Giants wide receiving group is good enough. Wan'Dale Robinson, Joe Shane told me the other day, should be back in a week or so.
Yep.
You bring in Jalen Hyatt. I got to see these wide receivers as a unit take the next step.
To me, that was what I had on the notes. The wide receiver, are they good enough? We know Waller's going to be good if he can be healthy. He's a dynamic tight end. They have the hardest schedule on paper in the league. If you look at the schedule, strength of schedule going on paper, I know that doesn't mean a whole lot in August, but on schedule, they had an easy schedule last year, much more difficult schedule this year. Can Daniel Jones elevate his play, or is this what he is, or is this about what he is?
I don't know what the ceiling is of Daniel Jones. I was not a big believer, like everybody else, when Dave Gettleman drafted Daniel Jones with the 6th overall pick out of Duke. But last year, he impressed me. And he played his ass off against a god-awful defense, but he took advantage of it in the Vikings. He won last year with less around him. Yep. Now, does that mean he's a great quarterback? Does that mean he's a top 10 quarterback? No. But in this era of 2023, he's a mobile quarterback, and he could throw the football too. I still, like I said, question the wide receivers, but I think Jones can be solid, can be above average, but I still don't look at him as like this elite quarterback in the NFL.
All right, let's go to Washington. Obviously, all the turmoil with the ownership change, finally, that's done. 8-1, Ron Rivera. New ownership. Sounds like they're going with Sam Howell, the youngster out of North Carolina. You bring in Bieniemy to be the offensive coordinator. News out today that the players are already bitching and complaining that Bieniemy's yelling at them too much and too loud. Just your thoughts on the whole overhaul in Washington.
Well, first off, good riddance, and don't let the door hit you, and you know what, if you are Daniel Snyder. An absolute disgrace that he was an owner in this league for as long as he was.
Yep.
Josh Harris, see, I covered Josh, his Sixers team when I was living in Philadelphia. Josh sometimes is not the best public speaker, but he's going to do everything to try to get the team to win. He has the Devils. I know the Sixers haven't been able to win, but it will be totally a difference with the Commanders because there's just no more negativity for now when you bring in someone like Josh Harris, who grew up as a fan of that football team. Here's what I'll say about the Commanders heading into this year. You look at the 49ers, how great they are on all sides of the ball, and then it's like their quarterback is a major question mark, and they find a way to get to an NFC championship game. The Dolphins remind me a lot like the 49ers, where they are a team that has a lot of talent, and the question is the quarterback. Like they're like the Walmart version of the Niners. And the same could be said for the Commanders. That front seven, they got to play better, but they got all the talent in the world. The offense, I love Terry McLaurin. I love Jahan Dotson. Brian Robinson's good, and Antonio Gibson is good. But that quarterback, if he could just be a game manager, then there's no reason why they can't be the third best team in the NFC East and in a weak NFC competing for that 7th and final wild card spot.
Do you anticipate this being a one and done where Harris cleans house at the end of this year unless they really, really overachieve?
See, I don't know, because like right now, I maybe would put them as my wild card team.
Okay.
So are you going to get rid of Ron Rivera, who's very well respected, but I don't think is a great coach anymore? Are you going to get rid of him if he takes this team to the playoffs this year? Probably not.
Right.
But when new ownership comes in, they usually like their guys, and we got to see what it looks like at the end of the year, really, before you answer that question.
All right, let's go to Philly, a place you know well. You used to work there. 14-3. Obviously, we saw they lost a tight one to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Your thoughts of just, can they repeat this? They've lost both coordinators. They lost a lot of guys on defense. Is this a repeatable formula with this new cast of characters?
Yeah, the coordinators, I think, is a little bit overrated. I'm fine with losing coordinators. Sure, you have to replace them, but you'd rather be in that position than no one wanting your coordinators, because that means your team stinks.
Yep.
I don't think Gannon's going to be all that special. I still got to see more out of Shane Steichen, even though he did a good job with Herbert and clearly with Jalen Hurts. But Sirianni has done a great job the last 2 years, coaching his ass off, getting the most out of his teams, and really embracing the city. The Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football. Their defense, even though they lost some pieces, is still loaded, and you got playmakers all over the place. I'm okay with losing Miles Sanders. I thought he was overrated anyway. You bring in DeAndre Swift, and health's going to be key in the running back room.
Right.
But from guys that are going to catch the football, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, who may be the most underrated tight end in football, and Jalen Hurts becoming a star. I don't think he's the third best player in the league like the top 100 list says, but Jalen Hurts is definitely a top 5 quarterback in the NFL and an MVP candidate. Philadelphia should be in the Super Bowl once again. And we talked about earlier those handful of teams that are Super Bowl or bust in terms of winning it. The Eagles are definitely one of them.
And we know Howie Roseman's a great GM. He'll make a midseason move, whether it's a trade, free agent signing, whatever, to improve that team.
I've seen all sides of Howie Roseman, because I remember when Chip Kelly got to Philadelphia and moved his office and basically demoted him. Then he comes back, he wins a Super Bowl, and then remember, he drafted like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and someone else that's escaping my memory. The former TCU wide receiver.
Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor, when he could have had DK Metcalf and then also Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson told me all those teams are going to pay that didn't draft me the day after he got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. But now Howie could do no wrong. And I'll tell you a funny story. My best friend, who I used to live with years ago when I was in the city, he's like second cousins with Howie Roseman. Wow. So I would get on the air and I'd be calling for a second cousin's job. And then we would like go have dinner after the show or something like that and watch TV because we lived together. So I thought that was a little bit funny, but Howie is the best general manager in football right now, hands down. I've been critical of him before, but anytime you doubt him, he comes out swinging. And this Eagles team, they should be back in the Super Bowl this year.
So it sounds like you like Philly in the NFC East and you like Miami as kind of your sleeper pick in the AFC East, correct?
Yes, to win the divisions, but then come playoff time, I'll trust Buffalo more than Miami.
So do you think Dallas makes the playoffs as a wild card?
Yeah, Dallas will make the playoffs. They'll at times look like they're the third best team in the NFC. They'll go win their 10, 11, 12 games, but come postseason time, I can't see them getting anywhere further past the NFC Championship. I think that's their ceiling, is getting to the NFC title game.
Last thing, I'll get you out of here. Cool thing the NFL did in week 1 with the scheduling. You got 9/11 weekend on Sunday, Monday night. The Giants host the Cowboys on Sunday night, and then you got a colossal clash. Aaron Rodgers' first game hosting Buffalo on Monday night, 9/11. How cool of it, somebody that's been up in the Northeast, up in New York City for a while. How cool will that weekend be for the city?
Yeah, so I walk past the World Trade Center each and every day. I live 2 blocks from where the World Trade Center was, and now you have the Freedom Tower. I remember when I was in 8th grade and Mrs. Crompier's class on Long Island in Dix Hills, Comac area, and her father was in the building, thankfully got out alive. But that obviously hits close to home, and it's a day that we'll never forget. And we know how important the sports aspect was to kind of get us distracted and try to get back to some sense of normalcy. So that was a very important. Obviously, all these years later, still, each and every year on 9/11, I walk right past it with all the tributes on my way to work. It is nice that you do have New York football now getting talked about in a positive way, and that's always an emotional week. It's always an emotional day. And it also was an event, even though it was horrible and you wish it never happened, it did bring this country together. And, you continue to remember all the people, all the innocent lives that we lost that day.
Yeah, it'll be a cool weekend for the city of New York for that weekend, the doubleheader at home. Where does Dalvin Cook end up, New York or Miami?
I think he's using the Jets. I still think he'll wind up with the Jets because the Dolphins, I believe, won't pay him what he wants, and he'll be okay with the Jets. Rodgers is recruiting like crazy to go get him. So I will say that, Rodgers can't do anything wrong right now. So I'll go Dalvin Cook to the Jets.
All right, Zach Gelb, great job, man. You can find Zach on Twitter or X or whatever the hell they're calling it these days at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. Host of the Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio on your Sirius XM and CBS Sports affiliates. Keep up the great work, man. We'll be listening, and we'll love to have you back on down the road.
You got it anytime, and I just got to ask you one thing because I've been getting some breaking news right now as we speak. Sources tell me that the Jets actually asked you to kick for them this year, and you may be on Hard Knocks. Is that right?
I don't know about Hard Knocks. My claim to fame is I played in the Arena Football League briefly. So I played back in the old school Arena Football League back in the day when I was all washed up. But
yeah, I remember Aaron Garcia with the Dragons as a kid on Long Island.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot Hard Knocks debuts tonight on HBO when you're listening. So my question is Zach Gelb going to be on Hard Knocks? Are you going to be asking those hard questions to Aaron Rodgers?
I do not expect to be on Hard Knocks. I was in the Manti Te'o documentary because I was talking about him with his girlfriend at the Heisman all those years ago. Yeah, with the catfishing. I wonder if I'll be in the Johnny Manziel documentary because I've interviewed him before, which I know comes out, but I'd be surprised if I'm in Hard Knocks.
You and Debo Samuel's going to be having Christmas cards back and forth.
Yeah, you know, he would leave me hanging. There's no doubt about that.
Good for you on asking him the hard question. He deserves it. So, all right, Zach, keep up the great work, man. Appreciate the time.
Jason, appreciate it. Thanks.
You got it. We'll be right back. Powers on Sports Podcast.